Yeah.
All right.
Hello, Derek. What's going on, man?
Hello, Coach. How are you?
We will have on a great guest, Coach Vinny Marino of Nichols College. They're off to a winning season. It's his first year as head coach there. He's coached, played football at University of Connecticut. He graduated the year that I came in, so I missed him, just missed him. But he was a great player there. He coached at the University of Connecticut in early 2000. He was at URI. He's been at Holy Cross. He's been at quite a few places. He's been at I think he was at BC for a while. Davidson. He was coordinator for many years. Ops coordinator. He was at Bryant. And each stop along the way, he was at Brown. His QBs, his offenses put up crazy numbers. And he was a great leader of those teams. And now he's a head coach, his first head coaching job, I believe, at the college level. And he's leading them right now. They are at 3-2. So, they're a team that he's really and kind of the theme of our thing is establishing winning tradition. He's looking to really turn around the program and build up the Nichols College, and we'll have him on shortly. But before we do, I do want to talk, Derek. Did you watch or did you see anything on the Vanderbilt Bama stuff? First of all, the upset was obviously the
right.
First
I think that was just a piece of it.
All right, so I want your comment on So, what's your thoughts? Because everybody's like all over the map on all these things, right? So it's amazing how one game can have so many different things going on. All right, so first thing, when the Vandy fans took the goalpost, walked it down Broadway. Have you been to Nashville? You haven't been to Nashville, have you?
3 miles.
Have you been to Nashville?
Down Broadway.
Yeah, so they walked downtown.
3 miles.
Vanderbilt's on the other side of Nashville. So
yes.
So they brought it down and dumped it in
the river.
The river. Now, next to the river, that's where the Titan Stadium is.
Correct.
That's how far they walked it. So what do you think about that? Do you think that was disrespectful?
Did you see that? So before they even got it, look, just to get it out of the stadium, okay? I don't know if you saw some videos. Security and EMT, the staff, they're like, dude, some of these kids are gonna get killed. So you see them directing traffic to help the kids get it out of the stadium.
Okay, I didn't see that.
Before people were just because look, some of these places, they do that stuff. They've done it before. They kind of have a all right, this is what it is. This is what it. No, dude. Plus, Vanderbilt Stadium is under full-blown construction.
Yeah.
There's not even
used to have. I've been there. Because my sister went there. I've been to a couple of games, and their stadium. It wasn't a phenomenal stadium.
No, it's not. It's sure as hell not an SEC stadium.
No, and I thought, what I also thought was funny when they played what Nick Saban said earlier in the day up on the board after they won.
Yeah, so that's only the first whole thing about it, right?
Then Malachi Moore,
I've seen
right?
A lot of Alabama fans all fire. Look, the loss is one thing, but just conduct, right? Now you have players, captains acting a certain way that is so not the code. And whether you have a new leader in the building, or not, just because Saban's gone, okay, doesn't mean that now all of a sudden you gotta act that way. You're talking about telling your DC, I'm not coming off the field, throwing a temper tantrum, throwing your mouthpiece. I'm all about competition and hating to lose, but you got to act a certain way, man.
He kicked the football.
Dude, he took the kid's head and mushed it into the ground, too.
Oh my God! Well, Coach is here. We already gave.
All right,
Coach.
Cool. Let's bring him on.
Here. Let's bring him. Coach, what's going? We gave the great intro of you, but you were not here to hear it.
Well, I apologize for that. Trying to get on.
No, that's not on you, Coach. My apologies. I appreciate you taking the time. Look, by no means are we all technology wizards. That's for sure. Because I'm sure as hell not. But
Anybody knows
appreciate
me
you
and knows I'm not.
having you come on, Coach.
It's a pleasure to be on with you guys. You guys do a great job. I've seen some of your podcasts.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Just kind of recapping what we said a little bit earlier. Coach has been around at quite a few places. He played at the same place that I played. He was gone. You were 92, right? As I was coming in, you were see you later. You were out of there.
Yeah.
And then coached at UConn in early 2000. Coached at URI. Was at Brown. Was at Bryant. Was at BC.
Yeah.
As an offensive coordinator, your teams have put up phenomenal numbers when you were in OC. You had E.J. Perry as your Q at Brown, who was like a record-setting guy there. Led Brown to some of his best years.
Yeah.
And now you're at Nichols College, really looking to. This is your first head coaching job.
First head coaching job, exactly. Yep.
And looking to rebuild that program, and establishing that winning culture. And obviously, so far in the first year, you guys are doing better than obviously it has been in the past, which is, part of it, obviously the pedigree that you're bringing in there. So, but without further ado, I don't think I've done it justice. I'd like to let you kind of talk about your coaching career and playing career, and then we'll go from there.
Well, my playing career was not very great. I wasn't very good. I was a good backup quarterback and a good holder. Matt DeGennaro, I sat behind Matt and Cornelius Benton. Corny actually started after that. Matt was a great quarterback. Matt was one of the best until a few other guys came along, like a guy named Orlovsky. But Matt was a great player, and I get to watch. And we had some great coaches at UConn when I played. So I learned a lot of great football, learned a lot about coaching there and how to handle players and competitiveness and preparation. I still have all my playbooks from back then, which is really how big of a nerd I am. But so it was a really great experience, still playing with some great players and guys that I still talk to, and we had some really terrific teams. And then I wanted to go into the coaching route, and so all those guys were Springfield guys: Steve Spagnola, Jim Collis, Rusty Burns, all those guys. So they got me tied into Howie Vandersea. So my very first job who was the cradle of coaches at Springfield with all those guys. Howie then went up to Bowdoin, and then my first job was at Bowdoin coming out of when I graduated from UConn. So. It was a really great experience. I got a lot of terrific experience coaching at 22 years old, and I was coaching the wide receivers. I was actually coaching. I wasn't a GA or whatever. I was actually having to deal with installing and dealing with players' egos. And not that back then it's a little different, certainly, but but it was every kid wants to play, and you can appreciate that. Everybody wants to play, so that's fine. But I, like I said, and then I went down and became a GA at Western Carolina and was on defense for 1 year, which is really great experience for me. And then I moved the quarterbacks, and then I've been on the offensive side of the ball ever since, and just kind of worked my way through. I was one of the youngest offensive coordinators in the country in 1998. Dan Allen had made me the offense coordinator at Holy Cross, and I certainly was not ready for it. I mean, it was overwhelming. But I appreciate Dan giving me the opportunity, and we were a program that was growing at the time and trying to figure out who we were going to be. But then after that, I really kind of think my career became what I wanted it to be. I get to work with a lot of great coaches. Like I went from Holy Cross, where it didn't work out, and again, I was not ready for it. I was, it was overwhelming. Do you think you're ready for it? But you're really not. And like I said, I think I was 29 at the time. And then I went and worked for Jim Reed at Richmond, which was really an unbelievable experience for me. And one of my great friends is Frank Leonard. Frank's like my big brother. Frank was there. Frank was our outside linebacker coach at UConn when I played. Yep. And so when the job opened up, Frank got me tied into Coach Reed. I interviewed with Coach Reed at the big New England clinic in Newport, and I got hired there. I started there in February of '99, and was there for a year and a half. And Coach Reed was just such a huge influence, and I'm still an influence. I talk to him a lot and text with him a lot, and he certainly has been a great mentor for me, and just learned how to run a program. I mean, talk about a guy who knows how to run a program. I mean, detailed and recruiting and just, accountability and organization. He is really a leader of men and a huge influence there. And I work with, like I said, Frank Leonard was on the sideline of my first win this year. They had Penn State at an open date. Frank's there as a QC with Penn State. He came up and was on the sideline as we beat Maine Maritime for my first win as a head coach. So that meant a lot. So moving, from there, then I went to URI, and I was working with Tim Stowers, who won, I believe, 3 national championships in Georgia Southern. Mm-hmm. So I learned really triple option football, which was great. I learned it, and it was completely different than Jim Reed. It's a completely different, Tim's a Southerner and very laid back, and, you do your job, and you're going to be held accountable to recruit and do all that stuff. But it was just a completely different environment. But we had success there. We went 8-3 my second year at Rhode Island. I left in February of 2002 to go to UConn and join Randy's staff. Randy, I believe, was in his 3rd year. And so that was, Tim was trying to get me to stay, and UConn was struggling at the time. But ultimately, I'm like, I got to go to my alma mater. I mean, I know they announced, made the move to that they were going to go Division I, and I just couldn't say no. I loved living in Rhode Island. It was great. And I loved working for Tim, and I worked with some great guys and coached a lot of great players there. But went to UConn, and that was a transitional year in 2002 from FBS to FBS. So that was a great experience. And eventually 3 years later, we played in the first bowl game. So, yep. And then I had a big decision. The last thing I was big say about it was Norris Wilson, who's like a big brother to me, became the first African-American head coach in the Ivy League in football. And Norris and I worked together for 4 years at UConn, and Norris offered me the coordinator's job. I just felt as a receiver coach that I wasn't going to get the coordinator's job at UConn, which I would have loved to get. And so Norris offered me the coordinator's job at Columbia, and I decided to go. And it was probably the most toughest decision I've ever had to make in my life, because I didn't want to leave UConn. I loved UConn, obviously, and it's close to home for me. I'm 30 minutes from there. So it was great. But what Columbia and Norris allowed me to do is become a better football coach. I had to really get more into the weeds of the run game and protections and all of that stuff. And I had so much respect for Norris and how he handles people and how he's one of the smartest people I know. So going to Columbia was a great experience. We had some success, probably could add a little bit more. But we were able to, I was able to grow as a football coach where I understood the bigger picture on offense, like I said. And when I was a coordinator at Holy Cross, I didn't understand completely the big picture. And then I learned it at Columbia, and I got to visit with a lot of people, which was great, all across the country, friends I'd go visit with, and made me better. And then, from that standpoint, that's kind of what's led me, today to be the head coach of Nichols.
That's awesome. It's fantastic. It's funny because hearing those names, Frank Leonard was obviously the outside linebackers coach when I was first there. I was on the offensive side at UConn at the time, and Frank was a great guy. Yeah, great coach, great guy. And then and it's funny because Jim Reed, I remember when he went to Richmond, but he was at UMass when I was coming out. And,
exactly.
And I remember Jim Reed was recruited me because he wanted me to come to UMass. Yeah. And he wanted me to come as a linebacker. I eventually ended up being a linebacker when Holtz came in. So he was obviously right, even though
exactly.
But he was like, "Do I need to stand on the table in order to get you to come here?" That's what he said to me. He said, "I'll stand on the table if I got to stand on the table." That's how Jim Reed was. He was fiery. He was fantastic football coach. I mean, fantastic guy. Fantastic guy.
Great human being.
Yep, absolutely. Like everything he said to you was 100% the truth. I mean, he was very straightforward. And it was funny because Tom Jackson was the ultimate salesman. So there were two different styles of recruiting. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
Styles of recruiting. So it's an interesting experiences too, because as a player at UConn, when I first was there, it was a different offensive coordinator. So we kind of went back to more of like an eye
Yeah.
And then when Tom got fired, Holtz kind of started to adapt it over time.
Yep.
But when you were there at UConn with Matt DiGennaro and Corny Benton, they were throwing the ball all over the yard. Like
Absolutely.
one of the first teams to really do that. Like Matt, and I know Matt, and so does Derek, because his son played. His youngest son played for our 7-on-7 club team for a few years.
Okay.
So but it was interesting because back then, not that many teams really threw the ball over the yard, and you guys did.
We did. Well, I mean, Corny, obviously Matt was really talented, Corny, but we had great. I mean, Brian Kozlowski played in the league for 10 plus years.
Yep.
Mark Didio was unbelievable. Mark, I grew with Mark my senior year. Mark was a great receiver. I mean, Alex Davis was a terrific. I mean, we had Mike Nolan. I mean, we had guys who just could get open, and guys knew how to play the game, and we had really good coaches. So it really was a great combination of talent and coaching where, that we were ahead of the curve, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no, it was. I remember seeing the statistics when Tom would come and recruit, and it was like 3 guys with like 50 plus catches on the same team, and Didio
back
was
then that was not what was going on.
No way. Nope.
No way. I mean, as many yards as Matt threw for in 1 year, Corny threw for.
Exactly.
An unbelievable amount of yards with Alex Davis, with Kozlowski, with Didio. I think those guys. It was unbelievable the amount of yards.
Corny was extremely talented. Now Corny was unbelievably talented, without a doubt.
It was amazing. So talk about like how, because it's really interesting your career. Like I don't know if not a lot of guys in their coaching career get to have such different variety that helps shape them as a head coach. Talk about kind of the experiences you had and how that kind of helped shape where you are now.
Yeah, it's like I said, I guys that I've worked for, and I've worked for a bunch of different ones. Like I said, Tim Stowers and Jim Reed were completely different, but both successful. I learned that. I kind of learned it early on one way. I thought it had to be one way, and then as you get around other coaches and you see that other coaches have success doing things differently, you kind of just need to start kind of carving out your path your own way and say, if I ever get my chance, this is how I want to do it. Now I'll say this. Now being a head coach, it's kind of like you're like, oh, okay, it's not as easy as you think it is, or it's not as cut and dry as you think it is, especially with dealing with so many players. But like Randy's been a big influence. When I worked for Randy really ran a great program. Like Randy, held kids accountable. School guys were going to class, and I do a lot of the same things here. Like going to class is really big. Obviously the accountability is really, really big. It's something that our program was lacking when I got here. So Randy was a really big influence. I mean, Randy was hard to work for. Randy was very demanding on players and coaches. I'm probably doing that here. I probably need to learn to kind of understand that better from my perspective after my first year here as I look back. But we're at the midway point of my first season. But Randy was a big influence. Jim Reed was a big influence. Like I said, I got to work for Steve at BC for 2 years. Steve was very intense, and obviously from the old school of the George DeLeones, Paul Pasqualoni tree, baby, the old school tree. So I mean, that was really, and then of course he worked for Urban Meyer, so that was great because a lot of the things that he talked about came from the Urban Meyer experience with him. So you get a blend of all of that as a coach, and it's like it's really cool to see kind of, and again, every situation you have to deal with as a head coach with a player is different usually, but just how you structurally want to treat players and generally how you want to structure your program, what matters, what's important. I know Randy was big at players practicing, making sure that guys practice. Like if guys couldn't practice, they couldn't play. Where Steve, C's philosophy was get into the game. So it's kind of a different, right there was eye-opening in my 2 Division I experiences, just 2 different philosophies of, one, get into the game, which I get. I mean, it's ultimately you got to get into the game. But the other one, Randy, was like, hey, you guys got to practice. Like and being at BC at UConn at the time, we're different. Like we were just making the move. So our kids were, we didn't have a lot of 4 stars. We didn't have a lot of 5 stars. We had all kids who just worked their butt. Like, Darius Butler came in, nobody recruited him. And Darius ends up playing in the league, and Darius just worked his tail off. And you could see him on scout team just shutting our varsity receivers down. We're like, oh my God, that kid's going to be so good. But C, like I said, C would be like, making sure that the guys got the reps they needed and then get into the game. And so I can understand both philosophies. I mean, for us, where we're at right now, I have a big belief in that. We guys got to practice. Like, I don't think right now we have an open date this week. I've cut back on some of the older kids who have been with us now for 3 years on the offense. Defensively, it's a little different because we've struggled on defense. And we have a new coordinator. So then they're just trying to find their way still. So this week's been a little different for them in the open date. But for me, it has been like cutting back on some of the older kids who have been with me now for 3 years in the offense. It's like, let me get some of the younger kids some reps. Let's cut back on your legs and do that. But it's been, like I said, I'm just working for all the different guys I've been working for. James Perry. James is a really smart guy. I mean, James is a really, really smart guy. And obviously it's a lower level, one step down, but James knows how to deal with people really well. And learned a lot from James on how to run a program. I was with him for 2 years at Bryant. I became the interim when he left. I was a finalist for the job at Bryant, which was disappointing. I didn't get it. I really thought I was going to get it. That was disappointing. But then James told me, listen, you got a job here, so you don't need to worry about it. If you don't get it, don't worry about it. And that made it obviously a lot better. And then it just took me to Nichols. So, but it's just interesting the different philosophies that coaches had as far as, practicing and getting, and I've even talked to Jim Reed about this early on in his career. He was kind of the model of got to practice. Now, as he gets older, he's thought as they got to get their reps, but they got to get into the game. So it's interesting, the different philosophies.
Yeah.
Right. And you kind of see that too, right, Coach? Like throughout your career, you take a little bit from this guy, you take a little bit from that guy. And now you just have that Rolodex of, hey, these are the type of situations that I have. It kind of matches up with this. Like maybe, okay, let's do it this way or let's do it that way. And you got to adapt to your team too. You have to know your players, what works for them. You have to know your coaching staff. Like maybe you have assistant coaches that have never done it that way and they don't know how to execute at the highest level, right? So look, everybody's got that binder, right? Yeah. It's just a matter of flipping to what tab and what we're working with. But, even now, at the end of the day, I think like just now with the world that we're living in terms of the social media stuff, the NIL stuff. Now, look, I know that doesn't trickle down to you as much at your level, but there's no doubt you're going to walk into a high school at some point in
Derek, we lost you there.
Yeah, lost Derek. I couldn't.
Oh, sorry, Coach.
Sorry. You said at one point you're going to walk into a high school.
Like I said, you're going to walk into a high school and they're going to ask you, Coach, what am I getting paid? And you're like, hey, bud, like you are very much wrongly mistaken at what we're talking about.
Exactly. It's no doubt. It's completely different. And that's funny too, because I've talked to some buddies about that and they're like, I don't make the money they make certainly, but they're like, you also don't have the headaches that you have. And so,
Coach, absolutely.
You don't have the headaches, no doubt. So, I mean, from that perspective, but we still get guys who want to go on the portal. Like I had last year, and granted for me this year, I'm sure there'll be guys who go on the portal. And last year when I took over, guys said, Coach, I'm thinking about going to the portal. I'm like, listen, here's my philosophy. Go in the portal. You have till the first day of class in January. If no one's taking you or giving you anything money-wise, then you should come back. And if you're not back, then I'm removing you from the roster. That's my philosophy. My athletic director is fully on board. It gives them 5 weeks. It gives them 5 weeks to find somebody. And I tell them if someone's
kudos to you for being that coach, though.
Yeah.
Right. Because a lot of those guys, like once that conversation even comes up, right? It's like, look, you want to go? Good, you're gone, but don't ever expect to come back and put in this place ever.
Yeah. No,
I credit you for understanding the situation
Yep.
and the way the world is now,
Yep.
and not having too much pride
Yeah.
in yourself personally to be like, look, this is not a personal thing.
Nope.
This is their personal thing.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, that's how these kids have been raised. And I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's good, bad, indifferent, because
It's
listen,
different.
I come from a traditional powerhouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I went to Montclair State, which is
Yep.
like, I ain't transferring out of that joint. You know what I'm
Correct.
saying? Like, that's just what it is.
Correct.
But
No,
it takes a different type of coach to handle it in that
yeah,
situation.
and I get it. And listen, these kids are paying for school, so if a school's willing to give you money, absolutely. But I tell them, if they're not giving you money and they're going to give you the preferred walk-on, I go, then you're a fool. I go, then you're a fool. You're a tackling dummy. They don't even think you can play. They just want numbers. They need numbers. So I explain it to them when they sit down and come see me. I explain to them the product because I've been there. I mean, I know I was trying to recruit walk-ons, right? We have to get, we only had 85, right? So at UConn, so you're trying to get 20, right? So I get it. I understand it. So, but I tell kids, listen, go in the portal. You'll have from when the season's over. Our classes start back up the Tuesday after Martin Luther King weekend, so about mid-January. I go, that gives you plenty of time if some school wants you, that they'll take you and give you money. And if they give you money, I wish you all the best. But if they don't give you money, they're just messing around with you and they're not serious about you, then you should come back here because this is really where you should be and want to be. So, and we'll see. At the end of the year, we're going to have to deal with kids who feel the same way. Some kids go in the portal because they want to say they went in the portal. It's amazing. Right. They just want to do it to do it. I mean, they know they probably won't get anything better, but they just want to say they went in the portal. They want to see their name. They want to say I'm in the portal on their Twitter page, and whatever. And it is what it is.
All offers being
so
accepted.
Interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting how the thought.
It's all clickbait, man. They can get another 100,000 followers from saying they went in the portal or whatever it is, and who the hell knows?
Correct. You know what I thought was interesting. So you brought up a great point of how Jim Reed and other coaches that handled certain things, or Dazio handled certain things as far as practice wise, and Randy handled things a certain way practice wise. It's interesting because every situation, and then your personal situation of where your team is at that point can also dictate it, right? Because Randy was in a situation where he, like you said, didn't have all these superstar players, was getting ready to move into the Big East, had to get them to a certain level, right? And just so they can compete at first, right? Just so they can compete. And then whereas at BC, you may have had a little bit better recruits, try to keep them somewhat fresh is a thing. And it's funny because I learned that as a player because I had Tom Jackson and then I had Skip Holtz. And Tom, I tell this to Derek all the time. Tom Jackson had what I call the 3-strike rule, right? In which obviously, it was very different than Holtz. So he had the no tolerance policy.
Yeah.
So Tom Jackson had a 3-strike rule, and guys at UConn in that era got themselves right to 2 strikes as quickly as possible.
Those 3 strikes.
There were plenty of guys that did that, right?
I'm going to say this to you, Dave. There are some guys who went past that 3-strike rule. There are a few
I can name a few that I can think of that you probably played with that were older when I first got there. That definitely abided by that, and they were great players.
Yeah, they were great players.
They definitely abided by that. But yeah, it was interesting. And then you saw Holtz, who was like, at the time was really, and I don't know if he probably evolved who he was, but at that time he probably followed his father's philosophy, which was basically no tolerance, right? And we practiced real hard, but he also both Holtz and Tom Jackson. The thing I noticed was, hey, the guys who were scoring points for them, and they made sure those guys were taken care of. So that theme always still applied. It didn't matter what both guys' philosophy was.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't change because you know who your players are, and ultimately that's your players are going to help you win games, and that's just the reality of it. No matter what the sport, it doesn't matter.
It's very, very interesting. So taking over at Nichols, I want to talk a little bit about that was like, and what you saw when you came in there, and what some of the things that you were really working on as first year coach there.
Yeah, when I got here 2 years ago as the offensive coordinator, I came in and it was eye opening. You know what I mean? Like I said, I hadn't been at this level since Bowdoin since in 1992, and being in the next guy is kind of completely different NESCAC has more better facilities, more money, those type of things. Obviously, you're dealing with a really smart kid. Got to Nichols and witnessed a program that was just it just wasn't what I was used to seeing. It was just kind of eye-opening to me, and I get it. I mean, the background of the head coach is different than mine, and head coach is a really good guy who's trying, worked hard, but just we would say things and not really do things. Like accountability, we said we were accountable, but we weren't really holding kids accountable. Certainly not. Like I agree. Like I think you should hold kids accountable. I just didn't think like we were doing enough for the kids. Like we wanted to come here, play football, and go to school, but we really weren't doing anything for them. Right. So I noticed that in my 2 years as a coordinator, and I tried to get it to be where when I got the job, and I interviewed for the job with the athletic director, and these are the things I wanted to do. One thing I wanted to do was I wanted to make it better for the kids. Like why we're sitting in Dudley, Mass. I grew up in Southbridge, the next town over. So I'm very familiar with Dudley, and I'm very familiar that it's not a big booming metropolis. So it was important for me to want to make sure that I reached out when I met with the AD, that we were doing things for the kids. And a couple things we did was one, I was going to work hard in fundraising. So I started getting on the phone and getting in touch with some people who had donated, and some people had stopped donating because they just weren't happy with the direction of the program. And I reached out to them and we started raising some money, and we've raised the most money they've had in probably the last like 5 years or whatever it is. So, but a thing that we started early, and we did it in the Ivy League, was we had a career day. So I brought back like 13 alums in February, the last Saturday in February. And there's a lot of successful Nichols alums. Nichols is a very good business school. It's a really good business program. And it's a good school in general, but it's a very good business program. So we brought back about 13 alums who volunteered their time. They came in for the day. We had continental breakfast. We had 3 different rotations. We broke our team up into 3 groups, and we had the alums would rotate the rooms, and they talked about their experiences at Nichols, and they talked about what was important to them and why they were successful, and building a bond with the alums. So when our players get out, they can help them when they get jobs and those type of things, and maybe lead to some internships. And so that was one thing I did right away, because I'm like, we have this great network of alums, and we're not really tapping into them in this regard. So why do you want to come to Nichols? Well, part of it is we may not, it may not be a booming metropolis, but you're going to build bonds with other alums for jobs, right? So ultimately, at the end of the day, you need to get a job when school's over. And so that was something I wanted to do. And just structurally getting the kids to, we would travel for games, and everybody would look completely different. Where guys were wearing like Nichols t-shirts, and one guy's wearing sweats, and one guy's wearing a sweatshirt. And so we went out and we got travel suits. So we all have black travel suits. We have a green polo underneath. Everybody wears sneakers. Guys were wearing whatever they call them, Crocs or whatever, and flying slides.
It's an optics thing, man.
Yeah, it's an optics thing. It just looks so bad. And I just said, that was something I talked to them, and I just want us to make it look like we're a team, and those type of things.
Yeah.
And so that was really important, just doing those little things that we can do.
That.
Yeah, just trying to do the little things that our kids can feel. And I've got so many emails just in the first half of the year about, homecoming, like we started Bison Walk. So we walk from the center of campus down through campus to our locker room, where guys are 4 would just roll in whenever they wanted to. Now we walk together as a team. Everybody walks in the locker room together in their travel suits. And and people have noticed at homecoming there was a good turnout. People thought it was really cool. We kind of entered the field together. Like before, we would just run on the field. There was now I wait, everybody waits. We have to walk down a hill from our locker room. Everybody we wait at the base of the hill. We open up the fence and we come running out together as a team. And so just trying to press upon the team thing has been big, of building a culture of accountability where you're actually really accountable. Like if a kid misses a class, I get an email the next morning about that from it's an automated email that comes from our director of academics, who deals just with athletes, by the way. It's a really great setup we have here. Just only athletes. She only deals with athletes.
Yeah, we have that in Montclair State too.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. It really is. There's not a lot of Division III programs that have it. And
we had one of those. Her name was Tara Reed. She was amazing. And literally, like, if you're like, hey, I'm having trouble with this, or I'm having, I need to fit this class in somewhere. Like, you go right to Tara. She would be like, okay, let's take a look at it. Let's see where you're at. I mean, it was absolutely amazing.
It's huge. And she Janet, her name's Janet Newman. Janet she speaks at our prospect days.
Yep.
She speaks to any high level recruit we want that we need. The family
Absolutely.
comes in. She's fantastic. She is an absolutely slam dunk for us, and she's big. So, so if a kid misses a class, I get an automated email at 8 a.m. So what the kids have got to do is they've got to email the professor. Most of them are late. Most of them go, but they're late. Well, tell them you're late, guys. You're late. Can't be late for the team bus. You can't be late for the kickoff. You can't be late for things. So, so they email the professor, and I'm linked on it. So I'm CC'd on it. So they know the professor knows that I'm on it. So we would have a big issue. My 2 years here, guys wouldn't go to class. There are kids who are just, not doing well in school. In the spring, we had a 3.2. It was the highest GPA they've had here in like 6 years. So guys going to class, I've received emails from about 4 or 5 professors. Coach, we can really tell the players are different. Like they actually take their academics serious. They come to class, they sit up front. They're not in there. They're not in the back screwing around. So that's the kind of accountability. I'm like, guys, someone's paying for you to go to school here. You're not on scholarship. So let's assume it's a parent for the most part. When you think about not getting up and going to class, who are you hurting? You're hurting your parents. Your parents are paying for you to go here. So I asked them to be selflessness. We talk about FACTS, and that's our acronym for our program, which is family, accountability, commitment, toughness, and selflessness. Those are our five core principles. And so one of them, obviously, selflessness is thinking about others. So things we want to be able to do about not just, it's easy to think about our own selves in this world with social media and the iPhone and all that stuff. Think about other people. And so think about who's paying the bill, right? And make sure you go to class because they want you to go to class and we need to go to class. And so those are the things that when I got here just weren't in place. And we talk about going to class, but we really wouldn't hold them accountable to go to class. We'd say it. Guys go in the weight room. If you don't go to the weight room, then you don't practice. They lift twice a week in season. All those things are, so the level of accountability and I'm finding that it's a challenge because a lot of kids have not been held to that standard. Some high school programs, some guys don't even play practice during the week, and then they
show
play
up
on
on Friday night. They expect to play, Coach.
Exactly.
I'm going through a little bit of it right now. It's kind of a culture shock, right?
Yeah.
Like a parent. Look, it is what it is. Every coach does things differently, but look, I work for a head coach right now. That look, if you don't practice, you do not play, and I don't care who you are. It's literally that type of logic. And they've had to learn real quick, and it's taken some hard lessons and choking some things back for them to kind of be like, wow, he's serious. Like he really isn't going to play me.
Derek, our upperclassmen have bought into this thing. It's been great. Our upperclassmen, it's been amazing. Like the kids from January when we got back last semester, they are into it. They get it. Again, it's hard and they know it and they understand. Like it's not,
Majority of kids want it to be hard
without a doubt.
Some way, shape, or form.
It's the freshmen right now who are adjusting because this is their first year.
They're freshmen. They're fresh. Why am I not I was always the guy? Now I'm
why am I not playing?
Right?
Yep.
There's
exactly.
a lot. Look, I'm missing home. There's a lot of off the field maturity issues. And if there's one thing that I've seen about that transition from high school to college, it hasn't really changed. It's just I feel like now, because of the way things are, where kids now depend so much more on mommy and daddy or whoever is there, and we're constantly doing so much for them. The independence now, once they get over that initial rager where I'm on my own, I can go nuts, and settle back into damn, I got to take care of business. And wait, what do you mean I have to do my laundry? What do you mean I have to set an alarm on my own and mommy's not waking me up every morning? Or you know what I mean? Those types of things. Screw football. That's not even part of it. You know what I mean? And I think when you have really good coaches and mentors and upperclassmen that can help with that, when it's peer to peer, it's when your program can really explode.
Well, and that's those are all great points, and that's what I'm seeing. With some of the freshmen, the majority of our freshmen have been fine, but we've had some freshmen leave the program because it's just too hard. And I'm like, well, I'm sorry, but
this ain't that hard.
No, it's really not that hard. But you've probably been able to do whatever you wanted to do, or you just listen. It's hard. We're trying to build a program. I tell the kids we were picked last in our conference, right? We didn't win a league game last year. This is not easy. It's easy to play football. It's hard to win. Anybody can play football. But it's hard to win.
Great point.
And that's what, that's to me, that's the big thing that I'm trying to press upon with these guys. So what I did too with our seniors, which I've been pleased with our senior leadership. I did not name captains, and we'll vote on them for the last game of the year. So every kid, every senior, and every senior is going to get a chance to go out for the coin toss. So I'll take 4 out every game. So every kid will always have a chance to say, hey, I went out for the coin toss of this game at least. And every kid, they're in front of the team for the whole season. And then the last game of the year before, we'll vote on captains for the last game for who our season captains are for our last game of the year. But it's been something where the seniors have kind of embraced it. They all know their leaders. Some of them are doing a better job than others. Some are just quiet guys who really that's not who they are.
That's just not their thing.
That's just not who they are, but they'll get a chance to go out to start the game and at halftime for the coin toss. They'll be part of it. It'll be an experience for them that they'll have for the rest of their life. And then, but I've been pleased with structurally how it's been. It's just making sure these younger kids in particular understand, like, you're not the big fish anymore. And it happens. Listen, it happens.
Everybody was all conference.
It's been
Everybody
happening
did all
for
that.
decades. It's happened for decades. It just becomes a little bit harder now because kids tend not to hold the rope as long now. They'll let the rope go now. And before, guys would hold that rope and keep fighting through it, or transfer, certainly, where quitting was lower. Now it happens to be a little bit easier because it's easier to just kind of quit on things and blame somebody else. And
that's it. Finger point. Yep.
Yeah, that's just the nature of it now. But I've been really pleased with our kids and our seniors, and how, like, in general, we still have over 100 kids on our roster. We've probably lost about 10, maybe 12. But again, I'm not surprised by that. But we certainly are going to try to keep. The culture needs to continue to grow in order for us to have a chance to beat some of the teams in our league.
What Coach? What do you think is some of the things that? Because we always discuss, this is different and that's different. What are some of the things that are different about how kids approach things that's a good thing, that's a real positive thing that you see in how they handle themselves?
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave. That's a good question. I think in general, they love to play the game. I think they've been playing it since they've been young, and I know we always played it, whatever. They've been a little bit more structural. Like we'd played tackle football with no pads on the backyard. Right now, that doesn't even happen. Now but I think now kids want to train. I think they put a lot in the training. They take care of their bodies. I think it kind of trickles down, like everybody now has. Like, we didn't have the stuff when we trained back then that they have now. So I think they're just adapting to what everybody else has done. Obviously, the NFL trains different. Major colleges train different. We train differently. These kids are training at a much earlier age now. Yes. I still wish that kids would play 3 sports. I'm a big 3-sport guy. I still wish that. I think that's something I think kids are starting to circle back to again. I think they're starting to play multiple sports again. I think there was a time when they just were locking in on just playing one sport. I do think more kids are playing multiple sports. We've actually had a couple of kids get hurt. We had a kid at DB this year who was a freshman, got hurt in track this spring, his senior year, and we had another kid get hurt in rugby. But it is what it is. I mean, it's fine. It's their senior year. I want them to play. So from that standpoint, I think they're starting to circle back to playing more sports, I think, which is great, not one sport. But I think the training's different. I think kids are training much differently than we did, obviously, and that's just technology, and it's obviously research and all the things that you have now with all these protein powders and stuff. I mean, I still tell kids to eat the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, 2 of them, before you go to bed, with a big glass of milk before every night to gain weight. So
that still serves the same purpose.
That still serves the same purpose. Right.
It costs a lot less.
and they cost a lot less, and they look at me like
you can go right to that dining hall, brother, and you can scoop that thing as much as you want.
That's exactly right. And I'm like, they look at me like I get 6 heads. I'm like, guys, this has been going on for 50 years, and they're like, what?
Sorry, guys.
And I'm like, go get a big glass of milk, get you 2 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. But I also have to tell them, like, make sure you don't have a peanut allergy, because that was not even a thing.
Oh yeah, that's it.
I don't even know what a peanut allergy was back when we grew up. But I mean, now it's like,
that table.
make sure you don't have a peanut allergy. But if you don't, that's a great way to put on weight and those type of things. So
that would be an all time if somebody raised that hand in that meeting room and said, "Well, Coach, I have a peanut allergy."
They're also, I think, because of the training aspect, you get kids that have they have more skill sets as far as then
sooner.
You had a lot more raw athletes back in the day, and now you're getting kids that are a little more developed skill, which
word, Dave.
Helps you a little bit as a coach, and like,
Yeah.
okay, unless this kid is a more of a raw athlete, you already know, okay, this kid could do certain things skill wise, and he should be able to do this, and he should be able to do that, which I think I think you're 100% right. There's so much information too about taking care of their body and all the different things that they can do and they can develop, and I also think you're 100% right on the multi-sport thing, because obviously there's science that's come out.
So happy, right?
It says that helps you reduce injuries.
Yep.
It makes you more well-rounded as you develop.
Yep.
As a young person, then you're going to be stronger in the long run. And if you go to college and you're playing one sport, you'll be much better suited. It's funny because I coach my son's team's 9 years old, and someone came over and they asked my assistants. They said, how come you guys don't ever stretch? And I said, stretching is great if we want to do like team camaraderie, get us in line so we're kind of organized. But I said, as far as like getting them warm up, I just want them to get them going and doing skill sets and movements that can help them as far as what they're going to do football wise. And they'll warm up from doing those movements. And
no static stretches.
And you know what? It's been very helpful, because a lot of people have been having injuries. And I said, listen, you want them moving, getting them moving.
They're not standing around.
That's the whole thing. Warm the body up by getting them moving, preparing them for what you're going to do. If you just stretch and then you go and you go right into tackling drills, for example, they haven't even really been warmed up in their body. So, it's interesting, because now coaches, even at the younger levels, are starting to realize, oh, well, these are things that the older guys are doing. That's what you really have to do.
Sure.
And I said, hey, you can't. It's not like you can't get them in line. You get them in line. You can warm up 10 yards this way, high knees.
Exactly.
What we do.
Back this way, back pedal. It doesn't. You could utilize your lines if you want to utilize your lines, but you got to get them moving. You don't want them just stretching like we used to in 1993.
Let's get in the circle.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. No, we do all dynamic. We're moving. Our guys are shuffling. They're high knee and heel kicks, all that stuff. That's basically what our stretch is, to do that. Well, there's a great line. They say a lion doesn't stretch before he kills its prey. So in the jungle, right? So we all heard that line. So I think your point too about them having better skills, Dave, is a good point. I think the kids are definitely they're playing more of these flag leagues. They're playing more of these 7-on-7s, which we never had any of that stuff.
Right.
We're in it.
Yeah, correct. So a kid will be playing baseball, and he'll go play flag football or 7-on-7. So now the kid's getting everything, which I think is a really good thing. And I agree. I think their skill sets are increasing because of it.
Yeah.
Quick question, Coach. What's your staff makeup look like? How many full-timers? How many part-timers? Do you have a strength and conditioning coach that's responsible for maybe football, or do they do multiple sports? Because I know at your D3 levels, sometimes you're really stretched thin.
I've stretched it where I've really got every penny out of my budget that I got. I'm obviously full-time. I have two coaches are full-time, so I have our offense and defense coordinators are full-time.
So 3 of you total, counting you.
3 totals are full-time. I have 2 GAs that are here constantly. Trying to get a third GA. I'm working on that with some of the fundraise money. I'm talking to the AD, trying to get a third GA. I have multiple. I have 2 part-time coaches, one on each side of the ball, that are here basically every day. One's on short money. He's just graduated. He was a former player, former quarterback.
That's always a great move.
It's a great move for him. He wants to get his master's, so we're going to work on getting him a GA at the end of the year. Yep. Another gentleman's an older gentleman who coaches our linebackers, who actually was out of coaching for a couple of years, wanted to get back in it, so it's a 10-month contract. So I've kind of changed the structure of what we had here before, but it's all still the same budgeted money. I just think we're very efficient with it now. And then I'm lucky because I've got 3 student assistants that help our program. So it's really, really good. That's big.
That's amazing.
That's really big. And one of them, they're all good guys, all work hard. They've been with me. All of them have been with me now for 3 years. And then I have 2 guys who come over. They're both teachers, and they come over at the end of the day and they'll come coach. So one coaches our receivers and one coaches our corners. So we got 4 guys on defense get 5 on offense. I'm involved in the offense. I call the offense. And then we have, I'm calling it. I still call it. We're young. It's been a challenge for me in my first year because now I'm seeing, like, we just got done a Gallaudet trip Saturday, and that was planning that. We stopped at Rutgers, so we practiced at Rutgers on the way down.
That was awesome. That was really cool. That's a great experience for the kids.
Correct.
Like, all that kind of stuff. That's good.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was great, but I mean, planning all that and then looking back, and I'm like saying to myself, like, that I do a great job of coaching the team for Gallaudet, and game prep. Because, I mean, obviously some of the stuff was being like, we're waiting on Rutgers to okay it, right? And that was up for maybe 5 days before we went down there on Friday. I think it was Monday they approved us. So being able to do that. So eventually I would like to turn over the play calling eventually. But right now I just don't think I can. We do have a strength coach for the whole department, and he's got 3 GAs. But he does do football, but he also does several other sports too. So we just do not have a football strength coach. We don't have that, which I would love to have, because I'd love to have guys who are injured during practice. Then they can work with him. As we all know, Dave knows Jerry. Jerry Martin was one of the best ever, and Jerry those guys would be like, you know what, I'd rather practice and go work with Coach Martin on the sideline.
Yeah. I had the same thing at Montclair State.
Yeah, that's what you love. Yeah, I mean, that's what you love. So, but I know where we are. I know where I know we I think we have 23 varsity sports or 24, and Justin does a good job, and he's, like I said, he's got GAs. But I've got a good structure setup wise, staffing wise. It's really, really good that I'm pleased with. The coaches work hard. I expect a lot of them, demand a lot out of them, because I want these kids to get a great experience. Like the kids last year, just especially on defense, it was really not good. And the coaching, they're not on the same page, and I mean, we weren't on set. It was just a bad experience for the kids. And I met with every kid returning in the program after I got the job, and, to a T, every kid on defense was just like, we just need to be more organized. We need to be better communication. And so I went out and I think I hired a good staff, and we're still having some growing pains right now, but the kids are in position to make plays. And that's what you got to ask them. That's what you got to ask your staff to do, is put them in position to make plays.
Absolutely. I'm curious about, like, from a staffing standpoint, one of the things I've noticed, and you correct me if I'm wrong, that there's a lot more, for the college level coaches or student assistants that are available, that guys who maybe played high school football, played no college at all, sometimes didn't even play football, that are looking to get into college coaching. Yep. Have you seen an uptick in that as a coach since you started?
It's funny you say that, Dave. Exactly, it is. And I'll tell you a couple factors that I believe. First of all, our offensive GA, we just hired TJ Fullerlove this late. We hired him early August. He literally got here the first week in August, about a week before our kids reported. TJ didn't play college football. He played basketball, but wants to get into college coaching football. So we hired him, and he's working hard. He's learning everything. It's been overwhelming. He said, Coach, I never expected it to be like this, but he's getting it. He's figuring it out. He's a great guy. He's a great young, has a great chance to be a great young coach, works hard at it. It's important to him. But yes, Dave, absolutely there is. There's definitely an uptick of this. And the other thing we're finding, and I found this because trying to hire staff this year, and again, this is my first year doing it, and I've talked to other coaches in Division III, because of the Division I staffs now are all big, right? You can have all these quality control people. You can have all these recruiting people. Guys are going from, instead of coaching and actually getting hands-on coaching experience at our level, they're going to the higher levels to be a guy who's not coaching, but you're on the staff. So all you're doing is either tweeting, you're breaking film, but you're not coaching, and you're not even recruiting. So, and that's kind of taken away from the pool that we have to hire coaches. So I think, so now that brings in guys who are in high school who now want to coach. Our corners, like I said, the two guys who are teachers are both guys who are high school coaches last year. So now they're coaching for us. Yeah.
Right. And I'll be very honest with you. When I was at Montclair State, my last season was 2007, right? My head coach and the OC were the only two full-time coaches on staff, right? Yep. My DC, defensive backs coach, receivers coach, defensive line coach, majority of those guys were high school teachers who would get to the field, get in the building, and do what they had to do.
Correct.
Had a couple student assistants, right? Guys that were just local and whatnot, but that's really how the staff was made up.
Yep.
Now, they've obviously progressed with it, and I believe they have 3 full-timers as well now. But like I said, like that's what it was. They were
Sure.
high school teachers that came to practice and
Yep.
just put in the extra hours. You know what I mean? Their
Yep.
paycheck sure as hell didn't show it
No.
because they
No.
could have made a lot more money being a high school a high school assistant coach, probably
Assistant
at some
coach.
points, know, and then they could have been a coach with us. But look, those guys worked hard. They put in the time.
Yep.
You felt like you were at a Division I program.
I think
with how much stuff they put into it.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting opportunity for coaches that want to break into college because of what you just said, because there's a shortage of good coaches at Division III level because they could have endless staffs at Division I. Literally, they're especially at any of the
start
the
making
Group
up
of 4
titles.
schools. Their budgets are endless, right?
Yep.
So it's really, really interesting that you're able to really get guys that are looking to learn and be able to want to coach. What does success in the Nichols program look like if you were to kind of look at it again next year? What would be success for you, and then beyond this year?
Yeah, I think for us, the first, we have a couple goals. One of them, we want to be undefeated at home because I think it's important we defend our home. I think we talk about, we talk about this, we reference it as the hill, and we're, obviously we're the bison, we're herd, so we want to defend the hill. We want to defend where we roam. The other thing I think is a winning season. I think, honestly, we haven't had a winning season since pre-COVID. That's a big one for us right now. I mean, just trying to get over that hump where we can now sit there in recruiting and say, hey, we won more games than we lost. And I think that's really important as we kind of walk. And everybody, when I put up our goals in our preseason for our team, and undefeated was not one of them. And I'm like, guys, if teams go undefeated, that's like a cherry on top of a sundae. You don't really expect to go undefeated, right? I mean, right. Everybody wants that to be a goal, and I think our kids are kind of their eyes were open. Like, guys, I don't expect us to go undefeated. And if that bums you out, I'm really sorry, but I'm just being realistic with you. But these are the goals that we talked about as far as the tangible goals of being undefeated at home and having a winning season. And that's the case. If we're going to have a winning season, then we're probably not finishing last in the conference where we were picked. So we overcame being picked last in the conference. So those are the things that right now where we're at as we try to continue to recruit and try to build a culture and build what's going on here to that where we're going to eventually reach the top of the league and eventually play for conference championships. We've never been to the playoffs, so obviously that's something. Yeah, we've never played in the playoff game. So all of those all of those goals are what's ahead of us. But right now, it's just getting these kids to have success, learning to deal with overcoming adversity. I think for our program, when things have gone bad, it tends to kids kind of stay there, and they don't get out of that valley and they don't climb that peak again in the middle of a game. They kind of just, next week we'll try it again next week, and it's just you can't do that. You got to be able to fight through it. Yeah, you got to fight through it. And that's what I'm trying to get guys to do it. And it kind of, we had a great win against Coast Guard. And honestly, last year, we couldn't get off the field on defense. We got to pick and we got to stop. And there were some valleys and peaks in that game, and our kids fought through it. And then we had some peaks and valleys in the Gallaudet game Saturday, and we didn't fight through it. So it's kind of like now we're kind of back to understanding that when something bad happens, guys, it's not the end of the world. We got to learn why it happens. And we got to go, and that's what I'm trying to get our kids to fully understand. And with 5 conference games left, that'll be a big challenge for us to know that, hey, we're not going to go out there and probably beat the doors out of anybody 48-0. So we're going to have to. There's going to be highs and lows, and you got to fight through the lows and get back to the high points.
There's no doubt about it. It's
you're going to score points, though. I'll tell you that much. I know you're going to at least score points, Coach. Like hell.
Well, we're trying. We're trying. Kids are working hard. Like I said, they're buying in. They've been good. Saturday was really frustrating. Saturday I needed to do a better job as a head coach. That was eye opening for me. I needed to do a better job in the sideline.
But a big road trip, right? Like that's a road trip. Like that's a travel game. That's
a
stuff
tough place
matters,
to play
man.
too, Derek. Derek, it's tough. I mean,
that stuff matters.
Exactly.
I've taken that 8-hour trip up to Buff State from New Jersey. That stuff matters.
Yeah.
And when you haven't done it, and you're trying to you know what I mean? Like I know people can say whatever they want. Like there is so much more to Division III football and just football in general than X's and O's, man. Like that stuff, it all factors in.
Looking back at it, I'm not so sure. And someone made this point to me. I'm not so sure that the highlight of the trip was those kids practicing in Rutgers. They were like so enamored with it, right? They were just
they're like they couldn't even fathom this.
Yeah, they walked in, they're like, holy cow. And then, I told them, I said, when practice got done, they were walking out from the locker room, they showered, they could take pictures, they could do everything they wanted. I gave them about 15 minutes. I'm not so sure that wasn't the highlight, and I get it just because they haven't done it, and some of those kids hadn't done it. I mean, I've been in those. I mean, I won a game in that stadium on Thanksgiving at UConn. We played them on Thanksgiving morning, so I mean, I've done it. But for those kids who have never done that, I kind of think that was the highlight of the trip, and I'm like, you know what? That's probably I need to reevaluate things like that. You want to give them that great experience, but we got to be able to learn from it.
You got to balance that.
Yeah, and going down to Gallaudet, I mean, it's different.
Listen, that's not an easy place to play anyway, Coach. No. Like that's not, what I mean? Like,
I mean, it's school for the deaf. They don't play music in pregame, so again, it's quiet. The national anthem is not sung. The music plays, but it's not sung. It's signed, obviously. You got both fans.
It's a whole different experience.
You got both fans. We're the visiting team. You had both fans behind our bench. There's no bench behind them. Yep. So it really was a very, very eye-opening experience. We played them last year and beat them, but we knew that, some things, it gets chippy, not necessarily intentionally, but just because of the whistle and things like that, things tend to get chippy when you play them. And we didn't, again, we tried to get our kids to manage that, and sometimes we didn't manage it as well as we wanted to, and it was tough. And I learned a lot as head coach in that game that I got to do a better job of recognizing when things aren't going great. I got to be a better rock.
Coach, what is before we let you go, what is your main recruiting base for Nichols? Like kind of what is your region?
Yeah, we're our main recruiting base based on our recruiting budget, honestly, is about 4 to 6 hours. So I want to really tip, though. It's really been hard 3 to 4 right now. Last year, it was, honestly, I could not hire my 2 full-time coaches till February 1st. I got the job November 28th. So we went basically 2 months with me and 2 GAs. So we really tipped into Connecticut, Mass, Rhode Island, tipped into New Hampshire, Maine a little bit, but not much. I'm just talking a physical presence. We didn't really go into New York, New Jersey. Those are places now that we have a bigger staff and I have everybody's here, we're going to tip into New York, New Jersey. I eventually want to go into, my goal is to go into the DMV just because it's an easy shot. You can get up. You can go to BWI to Providence and it's cost $75 and you can be there in less than an hour.
That's amazing.
You know what I mean? And now, but it's not a lot of Division III schools down there. You get the Division
II. There's no division. You have Salisbury maybe around that area.
Correct. There's just not a lot.
Leslie's gone now.
Correct. So that's why that's an area for me.
Frostburg's kind of somewhere, but other than that.
I mean, we tap into Florida and Texas. We have some kids from Florida and Texas on our team, and we can tap into that. And we don't necessarily have to go there per se. We'll send a coach. I'll go to Florida. Our O-line coach will go to Texas, and we'll hit that for a week. But I want to get into the DMV because there's not a lot of Division III schools, and you can get them up. You can get them up on campus cheap, and it's not even a bad ride. I mean, you go 95 in a car without traffic, you can be up here in 7 hours. It's not ridiculous. But even if we fly them up, it's a cheap flight. So we pick them up at TF Green, put them up for 2 nights, and then fly them back home. But the DMV, I think, is for us. It's just not a lot of Division III schools, and there's so many in New England. You know what I mean? There's so many, and it's just
you're recruiting the same humans.
Yeah, exactly. And of course you're going to lose some kids because the state school is cheaper. So some kids want the private education. Some kids they don't care. They're just thinking all cost. So if you got to get a kid who wants all cost, then he's not going to come to Nichols. So now you've eliminated that kid where we're trying to.
I wonder also is the, I wonder also
is from the Shore Conference. Yeah. So you should be okay.
Yeah. I wonder with Division III because the portal has so many kids going at the higher levels, and just
get some trickle.
Kids I work with. Are you seeing a lot more of kids that maybe could have been in the past a higher level that fall into Division III that are available? And then how do you kind of how do you get their mind frame to shift a little bit? Because that's, I think, the harder thing, like the parents and the kids, because the parents have kind of looked at it a certain way and the kids have looked at it a certain way. And then all of a sudden they're whacked with basically the reality of, in the past, I might've been a higher level, but I'm a Division III player and that's where I'm going to be at. And then, obviously in today's world, whatever happens from there happens, but that's where I'm at. How do you kind of, I don't know, educate them on that process? Because that has to be a difficult thing. There's obviously better players available to you, but there's an education to it.
That's a great question, Dave. It really is, because it's funny you say that, because there are better players right now who are getting overlooked, and it's all trickling down, right? So there are guys who probably could be playing at a higher level, but they get passed over because schools are going in the portal, right? So we're finding that the talent level for Division III is very strong just from a high school standpoint. And it's obviously finding the right fits then, right? So for us, like we say, it's the private school education. We're not a big school, so you got to get somebody who wants a smaller enrollment. Obviously, we're a big business school. Something to that. Sports management's big at our place, so we look for those kind of recruits. But from the trend now, it's funny. There was some, I can't even think of the website off the top of my head. There's some Twitter handle that ranked Division III in transfer class, and we were ranked number 10 in the country. We got a division.
That's cool. I don't care who did it, Coach, but you post that. That's going to be really freaking cool.
And we did that.
They're going to jump on that no matter what. At least they'll click. You know what I'm saying? And then maybe you get hooked. But that's cool.
Yeah, we got a transfer. We got a transfer quarterback from Marist. He went to Marist and transferred. So he's on our roster now. Who's he's a talented kid. We got a running back from University of Maine who was a walk-on at Maine for 3 years, and his last year just decided he wanted to go. He thought he was going to go to UNH. He's a New Hampshire kid, but because of the Division I eligibility rules being a little different, he was not going to be eligible, so he had to drop down. He reached out to us. We took him.
Come on, buddy.
He's a terrific running back. He's been a little dinged up, but he's a terrific running back when he's healthy. We got several transfers to come in this year. So we've hit the transfer portal pretty well. Like I said, the quarterback, the thing is with them, they just don't have spring ball. So in Division III, you get 16 spring practices. That's a lot of football. I mean, you get a lot of reps at running your offense, your defense. So again, these transfer kids just came in this fall, so they're still learning the offense. Like Will's the quarterback from Marist, like he's learning the offense still, but he's certainly a talented kid. But trying to educate them and understand that, like, sometimes you end up where you end up. There's a reason why you end up where you end up, and I don't think kids like hearing that.
No, they don't.
Because kids then will be like, well, I'm Division III, but I really feel I should be higher after this year. So I'm going to either go JUCO, right? I'm going to go to JUCO, and it's like you're getting into JUCO football is a whole different reality than Nichols College.
You're like on a different planet.
Yeah,
that's kind of dying a little bit as JUCO's dying from a recruiting standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
That used to be the place that you could go get your grades up, or a guy that
now guys
needed a little more development. But they don't have to recruit JUCO anymore because they could just recruit from another college for transfers. So
exactly, and the other thing that's huge now, and it's really started within these Connecticut prep schools, is these kids reclassifying in these prep schools.
Yeah,
huge. I mean, look, we have the Hun School here in Jersey, Petty, right? Like a couple of those, Dave. We see a lot of those Connecticut type areas. Yeah, your Northeast is big on that.
Yeah, big. So those kids all go there and reclass. So they're getting a red shirt. So they're getting a red shirt year already, and then never mind when they go to college, they get a red shirt year. So, but that's the thing that with us getting, I think we've done well with transfers. I think we'll continue to do well. We're working hard to try to find linemen. Linemen's a big issue for us.
An issue, Coach.
Both sides of the ball is hard. That's our biggest issue right now. We find skill. I think we can find quarterbacks. Like I said, Will's a talented kid. We'll see. I mean, But you make a great point. At the end of the year, does he feel like, well, I'm above this, or this is where I should play? You know what I mean? And it's just again, that's what you're going to deal with kids now.
No matter what, you're going to have to deal with it. You have to recruit your own roster.
We have to recruit our roster without a doubt, just to keep some kids here, without a doubt, because some kids feel like, well, I should be at a higher level, and it's like, well, maybe you really shouldn't. You're at where you're at, but Again, you can only talk to them, try to educate them, and then at the end of the day, they're going to make their decisions. So
yeah, no, unless Dave, listen, like we deal with this coach on the regular, you know what I mean? Whether it's guys we're trying to help out, whether it's guys that where I coached in high school, whether look, Dave's got, I mean, look, it's just what we do, right? Or whether it's our club team, hey, I want to be this position, and it's like, hey, I think you could get recruited more so, or do this, but everybody wants to score touchdowns, right?
Yeah.
And everybody wants to be that guy, and it's
everybody
like,
wants to be the guy.
There's 5 offensive linemen on a field at one time, brother. And believe me, like there's a lot more opportunities to do that because guys will take those risks. But like you said, you guys talk JUCO and that type of stuff. Like what you're seeing now, right, is like colleges aren't even looking for high school guys that much anymore. And it doesn't matter how many more scholarships you add or how many more this or that. Like they'll just go to that portal because the urgency to win now doesn't allow me to develop a guy.
Correct.
And I could bring in that really stud guy, but if he's not the one by week 2, he's gone, right? And then all those things factor into it. And look, like you said, you are where you need to be, and you can always work. But like, even if you think you're that division, work like a Division I guy, right? Put that on tape that you are that Division I guy, because now college is just like high school. Like they got to go submit tape, and if you don't have tape, right, from even practice or whatever, nobody's going to recruit you based off of your, whatever highlight film from 2 years ago. So,
correct. Yep, that's exactly right. No doubt, without a doubt.
Absolutely.
No, it's interesting. No doubt, it's interesting times.
And it's changed, and it constantly is going to change.
It's constantly going to change.
And we just try and like Dave and I just try to educate people the best we can, parents, kids, and like, hey, what you thought was recruiting is not recruiting now.
That's exactly right.
I had one question. I'm curious about this because I saw, and I don't even know if you know the answer, but the NIL signing day is NIL, not the signing day, but NLI, National Letter of Intent, is going away, right? So, can you explain what that kind of, if you know what that kind of means and what's actually going to change there? And
I don't know all of it because it's constantly.
I think it just came out yesterday, Dave. Like they literally just said it yesterday. I definitely got to dive into it and look at it. But I saw it's obviously a big headline.
Yeah, I got to look into it. I honestly don't know because now that I'm hearing this, I know they've constantly were trying to move the dates.
The dates are god awful.
And now it goes to show you they're prioritizing transfers and not the high school kid. Right. So how do you treat the high school kid fairly with you don't have a date to sign when now all of a sudden it's all geared to the transfer. It's all geared.
I heard that the agreement itself is going to so it's no longer going to be a national letter of intent. It's going to be like basically
like
just your regular athletic scholarship agreement that you sign with the university that you're going to, which is, if that's true, that is really a fundamental shift.
Yeah.
And now maybe they'll put some sort of
they'll
put some sort of parameters on what has to be in that agreement, I guess. But
probably.
But that is a fun because that's a fundamental shift. And my thought process was they're doing it like you said because of the money they have to play players and letting those universities put that into the agreement, so it's no longer like, okay, I'm getting a scholarship, then over on the almost like opening the door to maybe employment. I don't know. Like,
that's
maybe opening the door to employment.
That's where I was thinking. That's where my head went, to be honest with you. You're now becoming an employee. Exactly. It's crazy. I was reading something yesterday. A linebacker at South Carolina went to Shane Beamer's office and said, "Coach, I want to," and he started playing, right? They started playing him, I guess, the last 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, I guess, whatever, and was being productive. And then all of a sudden walked into his office and said, "Coach, I want to shoot a red shirt." And Shane Beamer basically told him to take a hike, and the kid left the program. And obviously we saw the thing at UNLV last week or whatever. Right. I don't know where it ends. I don't know where it ends. I mean, I tend to be a traditionalist, and I'm like, college football is great. And I get the kids should get paid. I'm fully aware of that. The NCAA screwed that over a long time ago. The NCAA, they screwed that one up. But I still think we forget that kids get a free scholarship, a free education, and I still think there's got to be. We're not helping them with fighting through adversity when they can just pick up and walk anywhere. I firmly believe a kid can transfer if the coach that he went recruiting leaves. So if the coach leaves, you can go anywhere you want. But you just can't pick up and leave if you're not happy because of your playing time or something.
What else I thought was I thought maybe if they did one free transfer, and then if you need to transfer again outside of like a grad transfer thing, outside of that, if you had to transfer again, it goes back to the old rules. Basically, if you stay at the same level, you lose. You have to sit a year. Unless you want to go down a level.
Go down a level,
But like get one free transfer to solve okay, you got there, I don't know, it wasn't what you expected, or you have no patience, which is what it usually is.
That's fine.
No patience. Go ahead, go and leave, and then. But if you want to do it again, you used your one free transfer. So if you use it, let's say your freshman year, you're wherever you choose next, you're kind of you have to choose wisely. Basically.
And then you can also hold, if there's any NLI money, you can also hold the NLI money. In my opinion, I just think there's got to be some parameters put on it. I mean, I have a bunch of buddies in Division I, and they're just like, holy cow, this is just it's
so much.
I mean, they're making a lot of money as assistants now. So
but they're not even coaching.
It's nuts. It's crazy. But that's certainly a good solution. I firmly believe, because players complain about, well, coaches can leave. Well, I get it. Coaches can leave, but also people don't talk about coaches get fired. They never talk about that part.
They don't talk about that.
They never talk about the part that coaches get fired either.
As a player, you might not get playing time.
And it's not just the. So they're like, oh, the coach got fired. He had like when Ed Hirschman got $20 million or what's his name from Texas A&M got $80 million. They don't realize that the assistants and the G, everybody's getting fired. So
absolutely,
these guys don't have that same deal. They're unemployed, right? They have to find another job.
So players, to me, when they can just go every year and go somewhere different, you're not doing anything for them. Right. I mean, like I said, I think the one-time transfer is fine, Dave. I can certainly see that as a good idea, and I certainly feel if your coach that you've recruited does leave, I'm okay with that too. I'm fine with that.
Right.
But you just picking up just because you're not happy. I mean, we're not teaching these kids anything in that regard. And,
your freshman year, you remember this when you played. And I remember when I played, man, when I came in there, I was like, I don't know if I want to be here. Like, you didn't know, you don't really know anybody. You're meeting new people. By the way, you're at the bottom of the roster, right? So all these things, and you're trying to figure out school. And I always put this too as a thing. Hey, listen, when you're a freshman, okay, the senior girls don't want to date you. The junior girls don't want to date you. The sophomore girls don't want to date you. And the freshman girls want to date older guys. So it's a totally that's a whole thing that, we don't really talk about that much. But when you're a freshman, that's one of the things. All these things weigh in. Yep. So when kids just leave after 1 year or stuff, they haven't even given it a chance.
No, without a doubt.
Next year it's going to be a lot better. Trust me.
Right.
It's going to be better.
Again, Dave, it is such trust the process, man. Stay in there, battle. You got to learn to get knocked on your ass.
You have to
get back up, man. I'm sorry. And I have a different perspective because of where I came, how I grew, how I went through the whole process and all that kind of I had to fight for everything. A Division III safety having to fight for my job after starting my entire junior year as a senior. That's not it's not all just handed to you, man. But I'm just on the other side, the reward and the learning experience, the life experiences, how that's shaped my career and everything that I do now. It always goes back to that. Had I just turned and ran and taken the easy way out, nothing would ever be the same.
Well, we talk about differences, right? In the kids today, obviously we talked about ability levels, can be better because of the different, they're playing sports, but they're also developing their skills, playing flag football and stuff. Yeah. But the one thing you're finding is kids just can't, most of them don't fight through adversity anymore.
Correct.
And it's just frustrating because you have so much talent. We had a kid We had a kid on our team leave our program. Actually, week 2, he scored a touchdown as a true freshman, and then walks in the next week and said, "Coach, this is just too hard." And I'm like, "You understand that you just scored a touchdown as a freshman in the varsity game, and you're like a guy that's moving up the depth chart rapidly." And it is what it is, you know what I mean? And for whatever reason, I mean, there could be other factors too that he's not sharing, certainly, you know what I mean? But, it's interesting that when things get hard, kids tend to like not want to fight through it. And it's not certainly every kid. The majority, I think, still do. But you're finding those younger players who just feel it's easier just to go either somewhere else or just not do it. And then you look back 20 years from now, and you're like, you're going to regret that. You're going
to. That's because what it used to be was from the top. Everything was top down.
Yeah. Everything
now is bottom up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Everything. So what your experience is, and I always tell Derek this all the time. I'm one of the few guys in the world who's worked his way down levels in coaching versus, because I'm coaching my son now. Instead of working way up levels, I've worked my way down. So, but one of the things I learned from that is that it really is a bottom up culture now. So kids playing, back the AU thing where they go from this club to that club to this club, sometimes because they're getting recruited to a new club, or sometimes because they're not happy, right? But whatever the reason is, there's a continued shift, and it's always going on. And listen, I'm guilty too of it sometimes. So
guarantee we're all guilty of
it. This is kind of the thing. But what was nice originally about college sports was that was controlled in the sense that it was still top down. But now that culture has pervaded its way up, and I don't think that culture should pervade its way up. I'm not saying it's even okay, whether it's okay or not okay, but at the younger levels, I could see it because you're trying to get experience. As you go up the levels, that should not be the experience. There should be a level of, hey, this is the expectation of what we expect.
Yeah.
And you have to get in line with that. It's not that way anymore. And I think that makes it very hard for college coaches. It makes it very hard for high school coaches because if you want to set a standard of how things are and then try to push it down, but everybody else is allowing it to be pushed up, it's very, very. And we talked when we were waiting for you to come on. We were just beginning to discuss the whole interesting thing about the Vanderbilt Alabama game.
Yeah.
Let's take how great the game was. Let's take that out, okay? That was a big upset. And all the other things around it were so many things that I really haven't seen in college football like ever. And I'm not talking about the upset of Vanderbilt, like we talked about how they literally, people used to tear down the goalposts and they would kind of just tear them down and
they carried him out.
They're 4 miles away.
Right.
And now Malachi Moore, who's a captain, who's a revered player at Alabama, took, like literally not just lost his mind, but like lost his mind at an extreme level that you really don't like. He wouldn't come off the field.
Yeah.
Like he told his coach, "I'm not coming off the field."
I've never seen that before.
Right.
Like, I've seen players lose their mind. Okay, it happens to the best of us. It can happen.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But to not come off the field and not, like literally throwing a tantrum where you don't go off the field. I've seen people lose their mind. They go off the field. OBJ did it in the pros, right?
Yeah.
Threw his helmet. Okay, he got off the. I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Okay. But you're doing it off kilter, not in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
So these are things that, to me, are part of this culture. Like, and I'm telling you, players haven't learned those things.
Yeah.
Like, it's all these kind of things. And there's one. This is to me how the culture has changed. I'm curious your thoughts on this. So I saw these pictures of Alabama and how the coaches dress, and I could care less how a coach dresses or whatever. Whatever the school standard is, to me, you have to adhere to that. Yeah. And then beyond that, like, you have your style, I guess, right? But I thought was interesting was how everybody. So it went from Bear Bryant to Ray Perkins to Bill Curry to to Gene Stallworth, all the way through Mike DeBose to Nick Saban to Coach now, okay, who's coaching the program now. So Kalen DeBoer. So it's interesting how the style had gone from button up. Everybody, they had their own style, but they were very well dressed. Let's put it like that. To like Nick Saban was well dressed but casual, right?
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer is very, very casual. But I think that's all part of the overall thing. That's why I thought when you were talking about how, hey, listen, we need to be in travel suits, like a standard of dress, a standard of how you conduct yourself, a standard of those things, they are important. I'm not saying you have to dress like Gene Stallings did, okay? Suit and tie, right? I understand that times change. But a standard among everybody is important because at least everybody knows that we're one unit. And I think that's the thing that's breaking down across college football. It's not that it happened on Alabama on a grand stage, right? But it's not that that Alabama has a problem. It's that this is kind of the culture across football in general.
I think it's athletics in general. I think it's about it's honestly it's more about the individual now than the team, and that's why what we're trying to do here is make it about the team. But I met with some players in the open day coming off the loss, and I just got some feedback, and you hear some kids and they're younger kids who are still again trying to find their way. I get it. They were they're they were the top dogs last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, and they're still trying to find their way through. And it's just trying to get them to buy into, hey, this is what the team is. This is about being a good team. And for our week 2 game against Maine Maritime, we honored the 70s teams. And above me here, it's 5 championships in the 70s where Nichols won 5 conference championships. So for the Maine Maritime game on September 14th, they honored all those 5 teams. And about 70 guys came back. And so those guys, I had a bunch of them speak to our team after our Friday practice. They had a golf tournament. They came over. They wanted to watch practice. They watched our practice. And then and a few of them talked to our team. And all of them talked about the team. None of them talked about individuals per se, how great they were. They talked about the team. So then yesterday after practice, I said to the guys, I go, guys, what did those 70s guys, when they came back, talk to us about? They talked about the team and the records of the team. They didn't talk about how many tackles so-and-so had or how many catches so-and-so had, how many yards the quarterback threw for. They talked about how good of a team they were. And that's what I'm trying to press upon. But I'm finding it's so much harder than even when I was a coordinator 10 years ago, because it's so much of this me, social media. I can go in the transfer portal. It all is a big steamroll right now. It's just everything's steamrolling where it's about the individual. And like everybody says, you got to keep recruiting your roster because of that. And you're going to try to build relationships where you try to get kids to stay. And I don't care what level it's at. It's just it's pervading into it because it's about it's about more of the individual than the team in a lot of cases. Like we have a team in our league, Endicott. It appears they have a tremendous culture. They can line up against anybody, whether it's Ithaca, which is a great program, or a program that's not so good, and they probably don't treat them any differently. And that's what I'm trying to get our kids to understand. It's not about who we play; it's about who we are, and it's about that's what I'm trying to get our kids to understand. And we still kind of look at what did we do against this team last year, or what or how good is this team, or how bad is this team? When it doesn't matter, you just go play, and you just get better. And but I think part of it is just the culture that now it's more about the individual. And again, we're not helping it out when kids can just hop in a portal every year and go to 4 different schools. Or 5 different schools, or whatever it is. I mean, we're just not helping that out, in my opinion.
Right. Especially when we're talking about the most team-oriented sport in football.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we talk about here all the time. We talk about we need people. Like we have some injuries right now, so it's next man up, right?
I mean, soldiers, man. You need
but you just got to wait your time. It's going to come if you just keep working hard.
You're an ankle roll away from going in the game.
We've taken guys from our scout team and moved them up because they've given us great looks. And I point them out to the guys, and I'm like, guys, I'm telling you, like, we're not BSing you. Like, this is like, if you do a great job in these scout teams, you're gonna find yourself on a special teams. You're gonna find yourself traveling. excelling. You're going to find yourself getting in a game, and some kids it's just unless it's what they
Interesting that you
want.
bring that up, Coach.
That
It's interesting that you
the
bring
biggest
that up.
point is the point that you and Derek just said. It's a team sport. Like, listen, if you're in track and field, okay,
Different.
or you're in wrestling, or
Different.
a swimming or diving, where for the most part, I mean, I know they have team scoring, but for the most part, it's about the individual.
It's you.
I actually think if they want to hop around, you know what? You're looking for a specific coach to coach you in your individual talented sport. It's not so much about the team, although they would probably argue back that it is to me, but it is a little more obviously individual, right? I could understand that to it, but not in team sports. In pure team sports, you're going to have a real big problem in establishing any level of camaraderie, any level of development.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I tell our guys, I say, guys, this is about us being a team. Like, we got to play team defense. We got to play our special teams. We're all going to play together. Offensively, obviously, everyone's got to play together. And I say, if you really want to be an individual, if you care more about your stats, then you really should go play golf. I mean, golf is the ultimate. Golf's the ultimate. Playing by yourself. I mean, tennis. I'm not trying to be a jerk to you, but you've got to want to buy into the team concept. Like, if that's not a big part of what you want to do, then it's not really what we want to do here. I mean, we're about the team. We're about us building a program the right way so that we have a good team. And I look at like a program which Endicott right now is a gold standard in our league.
Yep.
I mean, they have a great team. I mean, they have a great culture. They hold each other accountable. I mean, I've heard stories about it, and it's just, it's just, that's what we're trying to get to here. And, and obviously success helps breeds that. Obviously, when you start winning, people obviously see it, and that helps. So, that's why Saturday we have to overcome the Gallaudet game and bounce back from that, because we were on a nice roll where our kids were seeing that. Now we had some adversity, and now we're trying to get it back to where we kind of refocus again as we head to the second half of the year.
Absolutely. Coach, it's been great having you on. I can't thank you enough.
Guys, I apologize for being late.
Appreciate your time, man. I'm glad we got to catch you on a little bit of a bye week, so I'm glad we could get you. But I appreciate you taking the time. You're doing great things. Let us know if we can help you out in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
We're both in Central Jersey now, so.
Well, listen. Any recruits you think would be a great fit? Any recruits you think would be a great fit? Certainly email me. Like I said, we want to get in that Jersey area, big time. And if there's anybody who's looking for a business school, and obviously we're not super big, so some kids want that size. Yeah, let me know.
They love that.
You're a UConn alum, Coach. You know we're taking care of you. I'm taking care of you, no doubt.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much. I loved it. It's awesome. You guys do great work.
All right, Coach. Have a great day.
You, Coach.
Thanks, guys. You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was fantastic. Great.
Good thing. Listen, a lot of great comments in here, too. A lot of great comments in the chat. Guys that know people and know Coach and work for real deal.
Moonwalker's a UConn guy, so there's no doubt. I know that.
Look, you're talking about like, hey, he says hi, and tell him so and so are doing really good down here in Maryland and whatnot. So I mean, look, Coach has obviously been at a lot of places and obviously left his mark on a lot of things. And look, we know taking over a program in any facet is difficult, especially when you're on it, kind of doing what he's doing. So look, I think he's going to do great things. I think now that he can kind of really get a full off season of recruiting, he'll get some guys in there. And look, the wins and that stuff will come as long as you build that culture. And you're talking about a guy who's like, hey, we're wearing this to the game. I think that's huge in itself.
No doubt about it. Great podcast. And I'll tell you, it's interesting to hear college coaches perspective.
We're seeing
on
so much stuff
kind of almost everybody's on that same page, but it's just like it's kind of almost like if all the high school coaches got together and then started screaming to the NJSA, no one will listen until all the ADs get together. You know what I mean? Like so as much as college coaches all have an understanding of where it's at, but until the ADs and
everybody
and
else,
the president in college, it's the presidents,
it's
right?
all the presidents.
They got to get it figured out.
Oh, what was I listening to last night? Oh, you got to check out Mike Gundy. from
his
Oklahoma State. So he
his
went into
talk.
this whole
I've
thing.
heard him talk about it. I think
It's his whatever his latest one, or whatever I saw, like how to fix college football or whatever.
I saw
and
it.
he just talked about, look, nothing's gonna get done until the Big Ten guy and the SEC guy make decisions, because starting next year, they will any team from either of those conferences will not play anybody outside of one of those two conferences in a bowl game because they have an agreement.
Oh, meaning like Big Ten and SEC have an agreement that they'll play each
Will
other
only play each other in whatever bowl games they're going to be in.
outside of
Outside of the college football playoff.
Really? See, that's obviously a move to create your own top tier.
And
right?
that's what he said. He goes, look, we
And
have
he's
to go
Big
back.
12,
We have to
yeah.
model it like the NFL. We have to model it like the NFL, where everybody's equal, everybody's salary cap, whatever. He goes, because if all of a sudden everybody from, the East Coast is in the college football playoff, or everybody from the West Coast is, like, if nobody else gets in because these are the only teams that have all the money, like, nobody from these other places are going to watch college football. Like, that's just how it's going to work. I'm sure there's a happy medium to some of that as well, but
Right.
like, he's 100% right, because if you're in freaking, Boise State, when they were making runs for a while and doing whatever, like, people from those places started to watch more college football. Like, and now with these regionalized stuff, you ain't going to get that.
Here's what I do wonder. I think yes and maybe no, though. So,
well, I think with the social media aspect, that
yeah,
adds
like
a big
everybody's
thing to
national to an extent. Like I'll use Oregon as an example. If
Oh, yeah.
Oregon's on, even though I'm not near Oregon,
I want to watch it.
Yeah, same thing with Miami. Same thing with Alabama.
Yeah, but I think like Miami, like, that's
Colorado's
a
good example of that. Deion brought so much awareness to Colorado. Whether you like Deion or don't like Deion, you're watching Deion.
100%.
So you're
like,
watching
I get it.
Colorado.
I get both sides. Look, all of this, you can see both sides to every argument, but like, where it goes,
think what happens is, you know what nobody watches anymore? They don't watch the teams that aren't the top tier program.
They don't watch these bottom. Like, nobody's watching Temple.
Correct.
No matter who.
What I think is the issue. Because
listen, UConn right now is, even with UConn being good, I don't know how many people are watching them.
Not as much. Although they have the lucky, they're a little different because of basketball, that they get more attention than the other. But Temple's a better example in the sense
Buffalo.
Buffalo's another good example, right? Are they watching them? And Buffalo, I think, is pretty good this year. But they're
look about like your MAC schools, right? Like, nobody's watching.
They get no attention. Yep. Whereas you had a lot more. Like, I used to look forward to the Wednesday night game, the MAC night. They would have the MAC.
I mean,
I don't even know if
like
they
in
do that
Arizona
anymore.
State. Like,
do they do that anymore? The MAC night on Wednesday?
I don't even know. Like, maybe like no, what was it? Like nobody's gonna watch Troy. Nobody's gonna watch, like, you know what I mean? Like some of these other whatever. But I mean, look, it is what it is. We know it's all driven by money.
That question is: do the people regionally,
right?
Still, are they watching at the same level? Like, you're near Kent State. Do you still watch Kent State? Where that's what used to happen. But now, do they just say, "I'll just go. I'm going to watch real, quote unquote, real college football. I'll go watch so-and-so." Now, Rutgers, because they're in the big division, they're getting a lot of people watching their games, right?
Wow.
So,
well, you also have, because now, like, hey,
they're in
they
a Big
go out
Ten.
to Nebraska 14-7, plus
They're
now
big
you get
game.
Herb Street saying, hey, these guys could make the playoffs just based off their schedule. Like, whatever conference you're in, they're going to pump it up, right? But even so, like,
but they're in a big
nobody's
conference.
talking about Vanderbilt until all of a sudden they knock off the best team in their conference.
Yes, but now people will watch it because nationally you
100%.
So that's the thing, is the regional stuff could go away a little bit. Like,
well, I think they've already done that with, like, the Big Ten adding USC and UCLA and Washington and all this other shit. Like, it is what it is. But, like, like the ACC, which is mainly on the East Coast, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're an Arizona State fan, are you turning in to watch Clemson, Virginia Tech?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Yeah, 100% right.
Well, plus the time thing. Like, People on the West Coast don't understand how we have to like wait to watch football when like they wake up and it's like boom, football's on TV
in the
like,
morning. Yeah,
it's like it's interesting.
I hate that more than anything else. Saturday morning,
You're just
when
sitting there. You're like,
okay, 12 o'clock.
So does that mean if like the West Coast guys want to watch College Game Day, they have to get up at like
6 a.m.?
That's dedication, dude.
What's game? No, game is 10, right? 10 o'clock or 9?
I mean, even so.
Yeah, I think it's either 10 or 9.
That was one of the greatest things about being in Vegas,
Day.
though. You wake up and there's games on.
That is pretty cool, though. You wake up and games are on. That's real. And then your game, which is at normal time to everybody else, is like
10 o'clock at night.
10
if
o'clock
you really
at night.
want to watch Oregon on the West Coast, dude, it's like 10:30.
Yep.
That's why Hawaii
I never make
got
it through
a lot of votes when they were good.
I never make it through.
Hell no.
I stay up to watch at least the first.
Because remember,
half.
Dave, I can't make that, right? Because okay, Friday night game. By the time you get home, watch the film, break it down. Then you're back up the next morning at 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. We go 8 a.m. 8 a.m. You're back in the building. You're basically on like what, 2-3 hours sleep, maybe. Dude,
Right.
By the time Saturday night hits, I'm shot, dude. Like I've hit that wall.
No
like,
doubt.
yeah, I would love to stay up for that primetime game at night, dude. But by the end of the first, it's like, ugh.
No doubt.
It's a quick turnaround, man.
What,
Listen, problems, right? Like these are problems we're talking about.
When's
here.
our
Meanwhile,
next?
people can't even
When's our
freaking
next
have it.
one? Monday.
Next week, early next week.
All right, perfect. All right, we'll see. Until then, we'll see you
Toodles.
guys soon.